Last week I made a video talking about all of the heroes that would be improving now that new Alluring Desire was rotating out of the format. But what that is not is a meta breakdown video about what heroes you should be playing, what heroes overall in this meta game are doing well and will help you win or at least play well in a national championship. That is this video. And quick sidebar, I fell in love with trading card games in part because of how metagames form and what a metagame actually does for the viewer and the experiencer in a trading card game. To me, the metagame experience is one of the most exciting and story-filled experiences in trading card games. Outside of playing the game itself, it is perhaps the most fun way for me to interact with Flesh and Blood and really any trading card game. Why is that? Well, because you're telling the story of what players are experiencing over not just one specific environment, but this huge ecosystem. That's what is so fun to look at, and it's why I love making these videos. So today we're going to talk about heroes that I think you should keep your eye on in this national championship season, and it starts with that guy. Oh, no, he's that way. It starts with that guy. There he is. That guy right there. I think in the outset of High Seas and the beginning of the Nationals season, Gravy Bones has established himself as not the best deck in the format, arguably not even like one of the top 2 best decks in the format, but a deck that requires answers. He is the genesis of the format. He asks the question of all decks, do you have the capacity to remove my allies off the board? If you do have the capacity to take them off the board and still threaten my life total, you will win the game. If you cannot remove them from the board consistently and I can extract extra value turn after turn from these allies, I will win the game. And he does it perhaps better than any other deck before. And when I say better, I mean more fairly than any other deck that has done so before him. Dromai could do the same thing. Most recently, Enigma did the same thing as well. Perhaps the most unfair example of that in Flesh and Blood. But I would argue that Gravy Bones perhaps the most fair example of that in Flesh and Blood. And the cool thing about him is he's still powerful, he's still very good, because the question he asks is a very tough one for some decks to answer without changing a lot of the deck. And that's okay in my mind, and I think he fits a great place in the meta, but he is not the end-all be-all because the question has been answered by several of these heroes. Starting with the hero that I think most people have had on their minds to this point, and that is Syndra Drakai of Retribution. She has become a fantastic answer to the question of how do you beat Gravy Bones. The answer is just have all of the tools at their disposal to remove allies, draw cards, and threaten life total very quickly against a Gravy Bones. And the cool thing about this meta is it starts with Gravy Bones in my opinion, but it has branched out so much further than that because I think there are more heroes than just Syndra here that actually answer Gravy Bones' questions. And Syndra has a lot of game into a lot of different heroes, but in my opinion, she has become the front runner for a lot of people to actually answer the question of Gravy Bones. Now, again, she's not the only one, but she is one of the best. And let's take a look at a list that has proven itself and proven its mettle thus far. So spoiler alert, for those that missed it this weekend, the National Championship in Canada was streamed this past weekend, and it was a fantastic watch. If you haven't gone back to watch it, I think you should. And it was, of course, won by Syndra Drakai of Retribution. There were, I think, 3 Gravy Bones in the top 8, and we got to see several of those matches. There was a Kasai in there as well, and I think there was 2 Syndras, 1 to 2 Syndras, something like that. But Jordan picked up the win on Syndra and did so off the back of this list. And the biggest and most important thing to understand with Syndra into this meta is that Mask of Momentum is back on the menu in one specific matchup that I think is really important, and that's Gravy Bones. Because again, Gravy Bones kind of a big deal in the meta. Nevertheless, Mask of Momentum is very easy to proc when your opponent puts things out on the board that you get to hit into and trigger the card draw on. Outside of that, though, you can still do a big Mask of the Pouncing Lynx turn if you're playing that way, and then just pop off a 30 damage turn and try to close the game out after that. But the deck itself has, at this point, well and truly become pretty fine-tuned and, of course, very redline, where it still does have some splashes of blues. This was back when Syndra was first coming out in the Hunted early this year. There were people like myself that were trying like 12 blues and then 10 blues, and then everybody cut all the blues for a bit, and now we're back up to a reasonable 6 blues and a couple of yellows as well, with cards like Spreading Flames making its way back into the list. I love the 2 Snatch inclusion there and the 2 Oath of Loyalty. When you have so many cards that are not necessarily draconic but still very powerful, 3 Oath feels kind of bad, but 2 feels just right. And keep in mind, this is a list that is still running some amount of protection in the form of Sink Below and Shelter from the Storm, which is kind of fun because the lists for a while were very, very heavily aggro, no consideration to blocking whatsoever, and the deck couldn't even block very well because it had so many 2 blocks, right? 2 block, 2 block, 2 block, all these powerful attacking cards that incentivize you to be aggressive, but none that were defensive. And now we're seeing the deck kind of go back into a more defensive, well, not more defensive, but add some of these defensive pieces in to kind of shore up some bad matchups, especially like 7 power poppers for the Prism matchup, which is a hero we're about to talk about, because this deck right here is a fantastic answer to the wider meta and specifically Gravy Bones, but of course not the only answer, and it does have its own tougher matchups, one of those being the next hero we're going to talk about. Again, another way to answer Gravy Bones' question is just provide better numbers, and there's no hero that does that better than Prism, Awakener of Soul. I think I said Prism, but I meant to say Prism. I'm going to leave it in because I just don't feel like going back and doing that again. Prism, Awakener of Soul, a fantastic answer to Gravy Bones because she just says 7 into 7 into 7 into 7 into... She just does that. Numbers are big and they go brr when heralds hit, you get angels, and she's very good into answering Gravy Bones and also removing stuff off the board, making her own stuff on the board. She's very, very strong in that respect. And she doesn't have a bad matchup into some other heroes as well. She's got some pretty good matchups overall, including not a bad one into Syndra. She's a little bit favored in Syndra based on the overall data that we have so far. And this is the first place winning list at the Czechia National Championship on Prism, Awakener of Soul. As you see here, it's a pretty straight up standard list, though I will say it does include Riches of Tropeldani. That is a card that's making its way into just about every hero that likes yellows or every hero that likes gold. That card is very good, and I'm a fan of it. I opened 3, and it's okay by my standards. It's okay in my books, but this is the reason that this deck does so well, because it can throw big heralds over and over and over again. And having played the matchup from the Gravy side, it is not very fun. You can try to run them out of Figments, and then their deck becomes like a bunch of 7s into 6s, which is still very good. That's the problem. It's still very good. And they still have the ability to play out like Passing Mirages and Pierce Realities just to make things a lot more potent. And of course, Herald of Erudition just gets everyone because it's dominated, and you have to have D-Reacts or Poppers in answering Prism, Awakener of Soul. Without having Poppers, I think that's the specific thing. If you don't have 6 power attacks in your deck at your disposal already, this deck runs you over, period, end of story. And so in a meta that is trying to answer Gravy Bones with low to the ground attacks and like Syndra style attacks, Prism just says, well, I'm going to beat Gravy and I'm going to beat you as well. And that's where things shift a little bit, and you have to look at answers into Prism. And it could be that your deck just needs to include like more 6 and 7 power attacks in the sideboard, or it could just be that you have to play a different hero. And the hero that I most have my eye on right now, and it's arguable that it has like the best matchups into everybody, but has great matchups into a lot of heroes, is Kasai of the Golden Sand. I mean, it's just, she's so good. She's so good, and the crazy part is she can be built in a lot of different ways, kind of like Gravy Bones. It's why Gravy Bones and Kasai are my 2 CC decks, and then the 2 decks that I care most about right now in Classic Constructed, because she has great answers to Gravy Bones. She has great answers to Prism, if you build it that way, and she has solid answers into a variety of aggro decks. I think, in my opinion, she is the most intriguing hero going into any like major tournament right now in this meta, because she's just in some way, shape, and form, she's just back. The most interesting part about her is that she's made multiple top 8s, but she hasn't won an event yet, at least not to my knowledge. So correct me if I'm wrong down in a comment below, but she has made it into multiple top 8s. This is Aaron Shant's list from Canadian National Championships. I was a big fan of this list. My list is looking pretty similar to this right now. The inclusion of Gorganian Tome and the Draw Swords package from a couple of months ago has been huge, but I love the inclusion of the 2-stroke of Foresight. I was on 3 myself, and I love the addition, adding back in of the Nourishing Emptinesses in response, and of course the Blanches as well, in response to a variety of things in the meta. This kills a chum. It is fantastic when it kills a chum. And notice it will give you the +1 intellect if it hits anything, including an ally, which is great because it kills chum and gives you a 5-card hand. Blanche also, by the way, it's a popper, right? It pops angels and things like that, right? Heralds. But it also includes Blanche, which is fantastic into a variety of heroes because it removes all colors until the end of the turn. So if you care about blues, nope. If you care about yellows, nope. If you care about reds, nope. Every hero I've talked about so far cares about either blues, yellows, or reds. Blanche is an answer that no one's posing right now that I think should be on more people's radar. It's fantastic. It has a long-term game plan off of Blood on Her Hands, which just goes plus. I mean, it's not like this huge cracked combo, but it does like 20+ damage on any given turn. And into certain decks that don't like allies, it can also make allies. And so it just has all the answers, and I'm just so happy that Kasai is here. And I'm just gonna say it again. Kasai is a pirate. Look, she's a pirate. She cares about making gold. She wants to make gold, and then she wants to get a crew with Raise an Army, and then she wants her crew to swing. Like, just make her a pirate, LSS. Heck, she's gonna be available on a beach set. I mean, she's a pirate, okay? But she's also incredible. This is a fantastic list if you want to pick her up and start running her. I think she's very, very potent right now. And some of these like more expensive inclusions can be swapped out for just powerful cards in other forms and fashions. It's not the only top 8 she made, because Jose also top 8'd with her in the Germany National Championship, in a list that's a little bit different, including Blade Runners in a different way, with a little bit more defensive package in Sinks and Fates. This is one version of the list, and that all you gots as well. One version of the list that I think is also very potent. You can play this deck a bit more defensively and still find success. And in a lot of ways, that might be better for your local meta. If you need to play more defensively, make the game go super long, burn your opponent out of threats, and then win off of the back of things like Blade Flurry in the swing, pitch stacked towards the end so that you can get that extra value. Also love Slice and Dice. Big fan of Slice and Dice, so anytime that's included, I enjoy it. But to me, she's a fantastic answer to a lot of things in the meta. And at this point, we're not even scratching the surface of what this meta is actually presenting to us, of just this idea of Gravy Bones asked the question, here are a bunch of heroes that answer it. It goes further than that, and one way that you can look at that is off of fablazingdata.com. I just found this website a couple of weeks ago. I think it's incredible. It's fantastic. And it has a collated list of all of the games, all of the matches played across all of the national championships, which is incredible. And you can actually sort this however you want. You can put certain heroes at the top. But if we were to just take and put, I don't know, let's put Syndra at the top, and let's put Prism at the top, and let's put, where's Kasai? Let's put Kasai at the top. And then, of course, Gravy Bones. So these heroes are what we've talked about thus far. And if you're looking at your local meta and you're saying, okay, I expect to see a lot of Syndra in my local meta. I expect to see a lot of Gravy Bones in my local meta. What should I play? Well, if we look at Kasai, she's got across all of the matches that have been recorded at Nationals, she's got a 13-3 record into Syndra. She's got a 52% win rate into Gravy Bones, so that might be okay. And then she has a 53% win rate into Prism, whereas Prism has a 51% win rate into into Syndra, and a 67 basically percent win rate into Gravy Bones. So the question becomes, where do you take it? Where's your do you want to go Prism into that? Do you want to go Kasai into that, into these two heroes? And then if you're expecting to see Prisms, like for example, my local Armory meta, I know there are a lot of Prisms, and I know that there's a capacity for a Syndra, and there's a capacity for a Vinset. So if I'm using Nationals data to see what I might want to play, it might be a bad time if I were to play Gravy Bones into that local meta. It could be a bad time because two of those matchups are very bad for us. But you know what? I don't care because I'm just going to keep playing Gravy Bones. But maybe it's a good idea to pull back out my Kasai deck because there are some positive win rate matchups here in those. So it could be that if I wanted to win my Armory, that I go Kasai. But the meta goes deeper and deeper, and you could talk about, hey, maybe Florian's an answer for some of these, but then it's a really bad answer for Gravy Bones and Syndra. Azalea's pretty good for Gravy Bones and Syndra, but pretty terrible against Prism. Like, this is what's so interesting about right now in this moment, because the story is still unfolding as to whether or not, there's a best deck, or if everyone's just trying to answer what they expect to see. I'm fascinated, and I hope you are as well. Of course, if you enjoy this type of video, make the number go to the other number. And as always, everybody, thanks for watching.